Hey, this is Mr. Burns. There we go. Things are working now after a few seconds. We've been studying Minnesota state government, and it's time for us to pause and just go back over our learning and see what we're remembering, what we have learned. So let's just start out with a quick review. The Minnesota state government consists of three branches. They're the executive, the legislative branch, and then the third branch is the judicial branch. The executive branch has the governor, the legislative branch has the state legislature, and the court systems are found in the judicial branch. Let's start with reviewing the executive branch. Currently, our governor is Mark Dayton. He's not running for re-election, so in 2 years his term will expire and he will retire and we'll have an election and Minnesota will get a new governor. The important thing to learn from this slide is that governors are not term limited, so unlike the President of the United States who can just serve 2-year terms, our governor could serve more than that if they chose. The governor has some very important powers. Among the powers that we need to look at is, first of all, he prepares a budget and sends that to the legislature. The legislatures can act on his budget, or they might increase spending in some areas and spend less money in other areas. It's a work in progress. The most important thing that the governor does is he carries out the state laws. That means he's responsible for seeing that the laws of the state are enforced. So that word we use is called execute. He's also in charge of defense, which is the state National Guard. Another very important job that the governor has is to make appointments. So he fills lots of vacancies in state government jobs and with judges also. Many judges in the state of Minnesota are appointed, although some are also elected to their position. And then once a year he goes before the state legislature to tell both houses of the Minnesota legislature how well the state is doing, and of course that includes the people of the state of Minnesota. The other branch of government that we're going to take a look at today is the legislative branch. The legislative branch is very important. Its main job is to write the laws. And just like our U.S. Congress, it is divided into two houses. We have the Minnesota House of Representatives, whose members serve 2-year terms, and the Minnesota Senate, whose members serve 4-year terms. In the legislative branch, we have two powerful positions. The Speaker of the House is currently a man named Kurt Dowd, and the Speaker of the House decides the legislative agenda for the House of Representatives. On the other side, in the Senate, their leader is called the Senate Majority Leader, and just like the Speaker of the House, he or she decides the agenda when the Senate is in session. So kind of which bills get a hearing, which bills are going to get voted on, depend a lot on the support that these two individuals have for that piece of legislation. A lot of times these two men will also have to negotiate with the governor, especially toward the end of the session when things are getting tight and not all of their work is done. Here's some just facts about the legislative session. Let's start out with the budget. That's probably the most important thing that the legislature does, in addition to passing the state laws, is decide how the state is going to spend its money. And some of the places where money is spent on is school and roads, and then what areas of the state are going to get money for economic development. The legislature has 120 days to get its work done. No bills can be passed on the final day of the session, so it's kind of interesting to listen to the night before the session ends how rushed they are to get their work done. And in the last 4 years, the state legislature has had trouble getting its work done. All right, so this is our quick review on the Minnesota state government. We covered the executive branch, which is the governor. Mark Dayton is the current governor. And we also covered the legislative branch, which consists of the House, the Minnesota House, and the other house is the Minnesota Senate. And the main job that the legislative branch does is write the state's laws and prepare a budget for the state.